What's up, friends? Devy Joe's in the house, and we got a fun one today. We're gonna kind of. Oh, it's like we lost Kyle already.
It was like the second you picked record.
The second we started, that is brutal. Kyle's having a little camera trouble, but never fear. We're gonna rock and roll anyways. We're gonna kind of forge onward and upward here. So we're flipping a little bit to Dynasty mode today. We're going to do a 2024 rookie mock, full 4-round mock, or until we get frustrated and tired. But I'm pretty sure we can get through
5 on the
48
sheet
players.
because you said 5. So
Hey, that's what adults do. Adults do 5-round rookie mocks. So
Adults
yeah, honestly,
12-round rookie mocks.
I think at this point, getting through 60
years.
Yeah. Woo!
Find me the next Tyson Badgett.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Those guys can they can help you win some weeks sometimes. So never shy away from the long shots, I think, in this format. But definitely try to go after the guys with some upside in the late rounds. And do you have any opening thoughts going into this mock about this class or about rookie drafts? Where are you at in rookie drafts? Things that have changed for you in the past few years?
I think a lot of the things have already been said. I'm once again frozen. That's cool. But
No, I can see you and hear you.
Yeah. But my camera's stuck.
Oh.
But I think this class in general, we're looking at like a not amazing class. And I think some of the prospects we thought may be infallible have proven to be fallible. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be tough this year. I think Caleb probably not quite as good as you had hoped if you were going to lose all your games this year. Not quite the prize you hoped for, but still pretty good. So I think you'll still probably be happy with that. But I think there's some depth to be had, some sleepers to be awake on and find in this class that are fun and interesting.
Yeah. For me, I know after the past couple of years rookie drafts, I think I have honestly overweighted the NFL's evaluations. There's been several players in the past couple of years that my models liked a lot and that I liked, and then they got smoked with draft capital and I passed them up and then later regretted. I mean, Sam Howell's probably the most notable one. I had him as a hit. My model liked him. And then when he didn't get day 2 capital, I just kind of wrote him off. I had enough shares coming from campus to Canton, and I didn't want to be overweight, and that seems like a really dumb thing in hindsight. Puka, wasn't a big model hit, but we liked him. I wish I had more of him. And man, there's a handful of other guys like that. Sam Laporta, my model loved. I was really high on, but diversified a little bit, took some Meyer. And some of that looks like a dumb idea now. And then other guys on the other side, like Pickett. Didn't took some shots on him just because he got draft capital. Stroud was my QB1 last year, and I took a ton of young ahead of Stroud. That doesn't look smart right now. So I think for me, that's where I'm at. Wide receivers too. Josh Downs, Love, looks like he's hitting. And he was cheap in drafts. Took Quentin Johnson ahead of him number of times. I didn't like Quentin that much, but I saw the potential for upside. Draft capital, loved the Herbert, Herbert is a QB, and, really regretting most of the times I let the NFL tell me what to think instead of kind of going with my own evals. So I'm going to try to carry that into this year a little bit. All right. Who goes first? Kyle?
Oh, fine.
I think you can go
insist.
First. I think you can go first.
Also, just say you're smarter than the NFL, I guess. I see you.
I'm not, but I think when the data and the film lines up, I just don't want to overweight draft capital moving forward. But I'm saying, because the thing about Howell is he's cheap. You're not paying a first-round pick to take him at that point when he's fallen in the draft, right? He's not expensive at that point. Quentin Johnson, is expensive, you know? So maybe that's the lesson. Stay with the evals on the cheap guys and maybe stay away from the guys that are questionable to me that are first round picks.
Sure. I think most people tend to do that. I mean, like Hyatt was cheap still, and I mean, there was just more to QJ, I think, that people saw. But anyway, going into this year, I will take Caleb Williams, 101. On unexciting, uninspiring, but pretty much expected. I think the hive that has Marvin Harrison Jr. as the 101 is wait. I just assumed we didn't really talk about it, but this is super flex, right?
Yeah, super flex. People play in one QB leagues.
Okay.
Who plays in one QB league? I play in one because it's full
people
IDP
not on Twitter.
Yeah. Amateurs. Kyle.
Amateurs. You mean like 90% of the player base, but whatever.
Yes.
Yeah,
Where are you at on Cable? You said you're a little more tepid on him than you were a little while back.
I've always been a little more tepid than most, I think. I don't really see him as like a generational prospect, but I do think he's a very good prospect. I mean, there's not a ton of flaws, but I do think there are flaws, and but I'm still excited to see him in the NFL, and I think he'll be, how do I say this? I think there's a very like real possibility that he's a better fantasy quarterback than he is an NFL quarterback. Like splitting hairs, I think he'll be good at both, but I think he's like, if he's like a top 10 NFL quarterback, he's probably like a top 6 fantasy guy, just because he does bring some with his legs that a lot of other guys can't. So.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think the playmaking ability is going to translate, right? Gets free, extends plays. Those traits are good. Those traits are something he's going to be able to harness more if he falls into the right kind of place. You know, I do worry about him if he falls into a really crappy situation. I mean, he's used to having no offensive line, but
and no
used
defense.
to having and no defense. Used to having some talent at wide receiver, though. I think there's at least, above average college wide receivers on that team. He's got some playmakers. So, if he pulls a Bryce Young to the Panthers type card, could be a little rough on his stock moving forward.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I think 102's a no-brainer for me. I love Drake May, but I have to take Marvin Harrison Jr. I just think he is generational talent. And, there's a world where you regret this, but I think it's slim. I just think the probability of him being a top 24, top 12 dynasty asset immediately is very high. I think it's fairly high for Drake May too, but I just think it's a near lock for Marvin Harrison. He's kind of got the full profile as a wide receiver. We don't really need to beat that horse anymore. He's athletic. He's an elite route runner. Great at the catch point. I don't know. There's literally nothing not to like about Marvin Harrison as a wide receiver, in my opinion. He's as well-rounded and skilled as it comes.
For sure. I think that's fair. I think he's in this tier. I personally am a absolute quarterback collector when it comes to Superflex leagues, and I will draft anyone who is going to start at that position. So I will take Drake May at 103, and I think I would still take Drake May at 102. I think Drake May is also a very, very good quarterback prospect, and I think because of Caleb, Drake May is a little underrated, just in general. I feel like there's not that big of a tier break between the two. Truly, I really like May as a prospect.
Yeah, so I do as well. And honestly, there's no other player that I would even have considered taking ahead of May. I don't know if this was last year. I don't know if I would have taken Bijan ahead of May, but I just think the value of an elite wide receiver in Superflex League is still look where Jefferson and Chase go in draft. You know what I mean? Yeah. They go in the top 10 picks. And it's just a smoother path for me for Harrison to get there. I think it's unlikely you regret either one of those picks, if everyone stays healthy. For me, this is where the draft starts, right?
Yep.
I mean, 104
Yep.
is where it gets interesting. And, I know I'll say that what I do here is this is where it's probably going to change a little bit after the NFL draft. Right now, I think JJ McCarthy is another.
Okay, yeah.
I think he's another round one quarterback. I do think he's a top 30 pick in the NFL draft. And I think I'm on your quarterback collector theory because I'm pretty much with you. I just think look, you know how many people took skill positions ahead of CJ Stroud in the drafts I was in this year? And I kept being mad because I had so much CJ Stroud. And I was like, God, like, I like him, but like, I really wanted like Gibbs or like, whatever other skill position.
That happened to me with Zach Wilson too. Completely different results, but that wasn't often a recurring theme in that draft class for me.
Oh, you did not do well on that one?
Well, Zach Wilson would follow like the 109 because people were taking like running backs and wide receivers, but obviously he's not CJ Stroud. So
yeah, I was completely out on Wilson. My model hated him. I like to watch what's the QB school guy? He liked him, but then he would also but he would also be like, what's he doing on this throw? What's he doing here? Oh, that's a tough interception. And I'm watching that and I'm like, why do you still like him? Like, he's chucking the ball at G5 defensive backs over and over. They're just not catching.
But he looks really good when he chucks the ball.
Looks really good. He's got that sidearm. He's got the off platform.
He's got that blue steel when he's throwing the ball.
Yeah. So look, my model likes JJ at this point. I think he's shown himself to be an improving and talented quarterback. Last year, I liked a lot of his traits. He had a good pocket presence. Thought he moved around well. This year, he's improved his deep ball. I still think what he does best is work the intermediate area of the field, but he's got like that little smidge of gunslinger in him. You'll see a rip it a little bit this year. And, I think he's got some athletic ability too that's underrated, that he'll move around. I don't think he's a 500, 600-yard rusher, but I think he's the guy that, he adds 250 yards on the ground, gives you a little bump. But for me too, I'll say this, like, if McCarthy falls to the second round, I'm not taking him this highly. And if he lands in like a really crappy team, I'm not taking him because he doesn't run enough to have an awesome floor if he just has straight garbage weapons, right?
7 for 8, 80 yards against Penn State. But no, I agree with you. I think McCarthy, I think the thing we tend to forget with McCarthy is like, this is a guy who was highly coveted as a recruit, and that's because he's got a ton of athleticism and a ton of like natural talent, arm talent, some rushing ability. I think we kind of discount that just because of the system he's played in and the role he's played in college. So I definitely think there is upside with JJ McCarthy, although I would not go quite this high with him personally.
No, you will once he's a top 16 pick.
Probably, but I don't think he is. Anyway, that leaves us with a couple of options. I'm really still not thinking about running backs yet, and I think that's going to be kind of a trend with this draft class. We're not going to see running backs until late in the first. And I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take Brock Bowers at the 105. I think the positional advantage of having an elite tight end is immense, and I think he is one of those who fits that mold, and I think he has the athleticism to succeed in the NFL. He's a little short for the NFL, isn't he? But
he's a little short and a little light.
I'm not
he's like
too worried
240.
about it. I think he's basically a wide receiver. I mean, hopefully if anything, hopefully his size means that his coaches won't ask him to block defensive ends, and he can just go out on routes all the time. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. I really like him as a prospect, though. I think he's great at the catch point, great getting open, runs really really crisp routes for a tight end. So big fan of
I
that
think
route.
I think his athleticism for the position is going to be extraordinary too. He's going to run like a 4.55 or something. Like he's explosive. He's ready to jump well too. So yeah, I'm with you. Browers would have been in consideration for me at that pick as well. He was in consideration at 3, really. I'm going to go ahead and take Malik Neighbors at 6. He's my wide receiver 2 in this class now. I like Igbuka. I just really, it's off-putting to me that he wasn't able to do anything this year. You know, he's had like 1 or 2 decent games. He
He's
was my
played
wide
like
receiver 2.
4 or 5 games all season.
He's played more than that.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
He's got a lot of games where he's put.
There were like the first couple
him.
games where they were playing like 3 quarterbacks or 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. He's played a couple of games recently too, and just anyways, I still love Igbuka. He's still a first-round wide receiver to me. I just think Neighbors has done so much to build his resume over the past 2 years. We've had the discussion about him a couple of times. It's what does he do better than everyone else? And it's like maybe he doesn't have an extraordinary elite trait, but man, he gets open and he's great after the catch. And for me, I think he is a really good, really tight route runner and just a complete wide receiver. I think he can be a wide receiver 1 for an NFL team, and he can be like a fantasy wide receiver if he falls into the right circumstances. I don't think he's Marvin Harrison, where it's like a almost sure bet he's going to be a top 12 producer at the position. But I think he has the level of talent that he could have some top 12 seasons.
I don't really like Neighbors, but go off, King. I'm going to take Emeka Egbuka if you're going to let him fall to me. So I just think Egbuka has all the talents to succeed at the slot in the NFL, and I am a sucker for slot wide receivers, and he just runs great routes just like everybody else in that program. I mean, Hartline made his living doing that in the NFL, so he just keeps, passing down that talent to wide receivers time and time again, whether it's like Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave or anybody else who's been through that program. They all seem to run really crisp routes and get open for their quarterbacks, and I think Igbuka is very good at that, willing to catch the ball across the middle of the field, willing to get first downs, and I think that's the kind of guy that quarterbacks love to go to when they need some yards, and I think that easily translates to PPR points. So I like Emeka Egbuka quite a lot.
Yeah, I like Igbuka as well. And I think he's really athletic, like not just explosive, but fast too.
Mm-hmm.
Sets him apart a little bit from like JSN. He's probably more athletic than Olave. Really, just that was one of his calling cards as a recruit, and it shows up on film for me. He just catches the ball and he's several steps ahead of everyone immediately. Yeah, no, this is where it gets a little bit funky. I think you could literally go in a half dozen different directions with this pick and argue it at this point as being the right thing to do from, some of the second tier quarterbacks, or a couple of the next wide receivers I still think are worthy of a first round pick. I think I take Trey Henderson here, though. I just think the talent profile is still there. He's an upside pick. He's a little bit of a risky pick at this point, just because we've not seen him sustain a workhorse role over a full season until really this year, where he kind of has done it and he's looked good doing it. But for me, the athleticism, the pass catching ability, prototypical size, just he's the complete package. He just needs to stay healthy and put it on film at the next level. And honestly, I think he's going to be a combine rider too. He's going to be, he's going to be one of those guys that the guys that do athleticism in their models are like, oh my God, generational, with Trey Henderson, because he does have that level of juice.
Yeah, I mean, I think the injuries really concern me. I mean, he hasn't even played a full season this year. He missed some games to start the season, and um, I think he's a very good prospect for sure. The injuries concern me, and I think that pushes him down a little bit, especially behind the wide receivers in this class that I really like. And so I think there's still probably like 2, 3 wide receivers I would take above Henderson, and obviously depending on draft capital, quarterbacks. But I think I'll let the quarterbacks continue to fall because we don't know where they're going. And with the 109, just in case you lost count by this point, I will take Roma Dunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. He's been just incredible this year with Michael Penix, and he just looks like a guy who just wins every jump ball at the college level, and I think he can kind of make that a calling card in the NFL to some extent, like an AJ Green, Julio Jones type. But I don't think he's quite that level, but I also think he's probably better at some other things. So I like Roma Dunze quite a bit. I've really come around on him this season based on what he's done this year. So I'm going to take him with the 9th pick.
Yeah, I mean, after Harrison, he might be the best outside boundary receiver in this class. I mean, Neighbors and Igbuka can both play outside as well. They have some snaps there, but Dunze wins on goes. He wins on double moves and just absolutely scorches guys. And he's long, and he's fast, and he can get up and go after it. Just those downfield, deep area throws. It's his speed to win on slants and posts, things like that, and obviously an end zone presence as well. I mean, I also would have taken Odunze there. He was in consideration for me at 8 as well. There's several other wide receivers I like here a lot. I like Worthy. I like Franklin. I like Coleman. I think Worthy's the one that is probably the lock for round 1 NFL draft capital, but at this point, I incline to taking Keon Coleman over him. Just again, Coleman's he's a big X outside wide receiver. He's had some explosive games this year in a good offense, but an offense with a quarterback that I don't think either of us think he's really an elite arm talent. He's a gamer. He's a good captain of the team. But I think Coleman is going to be a big rise there. I think he's, at worst, an early 2nd round pick for the NFL. And I think it's very likely that he's in that like 2nd run at wide receiver in the like 20s. We tend to see like that 2nd run after the top couple of guys. I think he falls in that range. And I think he can be a serious weapon at the next level, either develop into a real wide receiver 1 or be just a really good wide receiver 2 for a team and a high-end wide receiver 2 for fantasy football.
Yeah, I think Coleman's really interesting. I think he's really fun to watch. My personal concern in terms of fantasy is that I just don't think I doubt that he'll ever turn into anything consistent, and that's kind of why I tend to stay away. Like we've kind of seen it this year in CFF. He just hasn't been consistent, and it's hard to tell if that's the system or if that's him. But I think the way he wins doesn't necessarily translate to a crap ton of targets every week. Obviously, there are going to be matchups where he's just better than the corner, and the quarterback's going to feed him, but there's also the possibility he gets a quarterback that just trusts him and is willing to throw these jump balls that he's so good at winning.
I think he's pretty much Mike Williams. That would be like Mike Williams Chargers. That's the play style. I think he's got a little bit more agility.
With less injuries, Mike Williams would be a hell of a fantasy player.
Hell of a fantasy player, right? But you're right. A little boom and bust. Depends on the system, the guy. And I do think I've seen Coleman do more with lateral movement, a la a Drake London for a big wide receiver. At times, he doesn't do that consistently, but I think he's got that in him. And he's a kid too that's still rounding out as a wide receiver. There's a chance that his best days are ahead of him, and he's got a profile. He's fast enough. He's big. He's powerful. I really like his upside.
No, okay, whatever. I'm going to do something kind of crazy, a little bit wild, a little bit of a reach, perhaps. And I'm going to take Devontae Walker, the North Carolina wide receiver, at the 11th pick. I think he has an insane mix of both athleticism and skill that will translate to the next level. And I think when we're talking about guys who like aren't Marvin Harrison Jr., aren't Emeka Egbuka or Malik Neighbors, that can be NFL wide receiver ones, I think Tez Walker is the top of my list in terms of that second tier. I just think like if everything clicks for Tez Walker, he is a top 10 guy. He has that type of athleticism and that type of like skill set of like winning all over the field. And like I think he can out athlete guys at the NFL level and when he needs to. So I'm going to take Tez Walker with the second to last pick in the 11th in the first round, the 11th pick. Breaking my own rankings actually, but just feeling a little spicy.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. I love Tez. I haven't watched that much of his play this year, but man, he came back from that injury and in his first game just absolutely dunked. And what he got like 3 touchdowns in that game. Right?
Yeah,
it was just like explosive, and you could see him just making a statement, right, for draft scouts right there. Yeah, so I'm definitely excited to get more into him. And God, yeah, he's a guy that if he does well in the draft process, he could be a round 1 wide receiver. He could be a guy that is consensus, at the 6 or 7 slot.
I think he's absolutely a guy who raises his stock during the combine.
Yeah, and again, he has skills that Egbuka doesn't, that Neighbors doesn't, and that really, I mean, more like I think similar to Dunze in play style, but even more versatile than that. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't hate it at all. Gosh, now the 12 spots, a little, I don't know. I've got a few different ideas. I just talking my process through. I mean, I am looking at Braylon Allen here. I think he's going to be a successful NFL running back. The size, he's got some athleticism. I'm also looking at taking one more wide receiver here. And if I do, honestly, it wouldn't be worthy. And I think I'm just going to roll with that. I'll let Allen fall to you. I'll take Troy Franklin here. Franklin is extraordinarily athletic. He's a little guy, but we've seen the NFL rolling with that profile lately. And he does have a lot of the traits of the other little guys. He's not as agile, explosive, or fast as like a Tyreek or, like Waddle, but he is extremely athletic, and he has just been freaking dominant for Oregon this year. And last year he had an awesome season as well. I think he's really built himself a resume. He's shown that he can win as the wide receiver 1 against good talent. A guy like him, I'd like to go back after the season and really watch him playing against like the corners from Utah and things like that. And like, how did he do one-on-one against Washington? How did he do one-on-one against like real elite talent on the other side of the ball? But like right now, I love his data profile, and I know he has the pedigree, he has the athleticism. He's a guy I could see be really successful at the next level. More of like a Jordan Addison, I think, but more athletic than that. Maybe not quite as polished as a route runner, but he's a guy that's gotten better every single year since we've seen him. Coming up in that program. So I think I'm happy with taking Franklin there.
Yeah, I think that's a very solid pick. He's also a guy that I want to come back and look at because I don't know. I feel like I need to look at him like independent of scheme, just like independent of that offense somehow. Like try and really just focus on him because I think that offense just does things that really help out the wide receivers, help out the quarterback. But I'd love to just watch some, one-on-one routes against the corners and really just focus on him and see how It works for him. For the 201, I am going to not take Braylon Allen and not take Xavier Worthy. I am going to take my QB3 in the class, and that is Michael Pratt, the quarterback from Tulane. I think he actually has the best chance of being the third quarterback off the board, and I think what he brings that's so different from a McCarthy or a Penix or even a Bo Nix is that he can run, and like he can legitimately run. I think he can, that skill set can translate to the NFL for him, and I think that'll really help with fantasy, and I think that'll make him a more coveted prospect in the NFL draft. I think, and the other thing about Pratt is like he just shows up, like, in games when in the big games when he needs to, whether it be like against Oklahoma or against USC. Like he's had his best games against the best competition, and I think he's going to have more opportunities to prove that, or at least one more opportunity to prove that if he plays the bowl game, because I think Tulane is going to be probably in a New Year's Six bowl if they keep winning. So.
Well, and then he'll be an all-star game guy too, probably. I would think. I think
he'll probably be the headliner of the Senior Bowl.
I would expect so, and yeah, I love him as a draft season riser. I mean, it's not like you're not on an island. A lot of people do like Pratt at this point, and I'm with you, man. If you're gonna go fishing at this point, you go fishing for upside. If he gets to be. It could be a rise like we saw Anthony Richardson have last year, right? We're going into the draft season. A few people are talking about him. And then, boom, round one pick by the Colts. And he's the 101 in Superflex. If he's gone in the first round of the NFL draft, you are not getting him the 201. Like, absolutely not. On that, too, I mean, look, if you can trade for Pratt now, if you believe in him, and you like Kyle's theory that like the athleticism and I think Pratt's a gamer too, right? He's a guy you've seen come up big in big moments, win games against better teams, right? More than once in his career. I love that kind of trait in a guy where like he obviously has like, he's got good G5 talent around him, but he ain't throwing to Emeka Ibuka and Marvin Harrison. Right? He's not, and he's still making things happen. And putting a good product on the field. So, yeah, I don't hate it at all. I think now is really where you start seeing the running backs come off. I mean, there's a couple other guys. I still love JT Sanders. I think he's a first-round draft pick, although I wish he had a better year this year. I just think that offense hasn't been conducive to it. If he's not Kyle, well, maybe not a first-round rookie pick, but in the NFL draft, his blocking ability, his athleticism –
I think it's an early second in the NFL draft, but that's
okay. All right. You're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
He's a top 50
pick,
he's like 100%. And he's probably the second tight end off the board. There's some other guys that played really well. Dallin Holker, you and I both like, but I think the total package and the pedigree for Sanders keeps him up there. Worthy, I think, goes soon. I don't know how I feel about Worthy for fantasy football because he's so streaky. He drops balls. I think you're getting Christ, what was the kid that played for Houston that just dropped all the balls? Will Fuller, right? Like, I think you're getting the Will Fuller experience from Xavier Worthy, right? Like,
highly acceptable, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
some good seasons. I'm more worried about, Jalen Hyatt.
No,
Henry Ruggs before not this including the legal troubles.
The data profile is real different with Worthy, dude. Freshman breakout, excellent production right off the rip. That just kind of shows a different level of talent. But for me, I start taking the running backs here, and there's several guys I like, right? Like coming into the season, we were like Raheem Sanders. I don't even think he comes out at this point. He was my RB1, and then I think I had Braylon behind him. And I had Shipley up there in that range. I do like Devin Neal a lot. I think he's put together a great season, but I still have to just look at the body of work for Braylon Allen and just the size.
Just look at the body.
Just look at the body, dude. He's a big dude, and he runs like a truck. Added some pass catching this year. Yeah, he's not out there running like in routes or anything. He's catching screens, but they're throwing him the ball. He is physically capable of catching the ball. And, like we saw with like Charbonnet in his senior season, sometimes just like a swing pass out to that guy with some lead blocking can be like really explosive plays for an offense. And, I think that he'll get some of that work. He'll get enough to be a really productive running back in the NFL. So I love the value of Allen at 202. I frankly don't think you get Allen at 202 in rookie drafts unless the NFL draft goes really differently than we think. And I think he's going to be a second round pick, clearly. So,
yeah. I can't disagree with that if he's a second round pick. This is tough. I mean, Xavier Worthy's still hanging around. I think that's kind of an obvious one. I think there's a running back or two kind of like lower down like our Devy lists that I think ends up getting higher draft capital than we think.
I'm with you. Yeah.
I'll probably save those for now. And I'm like in between 3 Texas players right now, and I'm trying to pick which one I want.
Yeah.
I'll take Sanders. I'll take Jatavian Sanders at the tight end position. I think if he hits, you're like ecstatic, and I think he has the athletic profile to hit, and kind of the receiving profile to hit. So, I definitely think he's going to out-athlete a lot of linebackers, and I think he has some pretty solid hands. So, I think he does have the recipe for success in the NFL. And from there, it's just kind of, cross your fingers and hope. So I will take him, and I think the upside is insane considering he's a tight end.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't for Brock Bowers in this class, we'd be talking about JT Sanders a lot more. And you wish he did more as a receiver.
I think if it was for JT Sanders doing more this year, we would talk about JT Sanders.
That's true. Yeah, it hasn't been a great season, but yeah, I have to think that's a function of the offense to a large degree. I feel like they're trying to hide Ewers a little bit, right? Like, it hasn't been great. So I don't know. You'd like to see him put together the kind of receiving profile that like Hawkinson or like Luke Lachey put together. But I don't know. I still think he has the upside to be that type of player. And he's more athletic than like pretty much any tight end in the NFL except for like 3 or 4, right? Like Laporta, Pitts, obviously, maybe Bowers, but he's like that type of athletic. He really is. So, I think that he's got some serious upside, and it's worth the gamble there. And yeah, I mean, and I know exactly the thought process you're looking at here too. I mean, I don't know if Jonathan Brooks comes out. I just don't know, but it's tough, man.
With the injury, he was not one of the 3.
Yeah, but Mitchell is my next wide receiver up board. Yeah. For me, he's an X receiver. He's an end zone threat. He's athletic. Is he like the full package for like a possession every down, like target hog guy? I don't know. We haven't seen that out of him, but like you and I were just saying, like the Texas offense has been not really one to like heavily feature like a wide receiver alpha for various reasons. So I don't know. I think that he might have his best days ahead of him. And gosh, I really do like him there a lot. I think I'm just going to lock that in. Although I do like a lot of the running backs that are hitting now too. So give me AD Mitchell.
Yeah, I dig it. He's another guy who's shown up on the big stage often, and just like scored touchdowns in I think multiple national championship games, ball out against Alabama, Texas, so on and so forth. So definitely kind of a gamer. I kind of want to go like crazy again. There are a couple of guys that are kind of screaming my name a little bit down the list that I feel like are reaches, but I feel like have traits that make them really interesting for the NFL. Um, and they're both wide receivers. And I think I actually will take one of them because I think I probably, like looking at my rankings, I've probably underadjusted to what he's done this season. He's been one of the really more impressive wide receivers this season and kind of out of the blue, and that's Jalen Polk, the wide receiver from
I knew
Washington.
you were going to take Polk.
I like what he's done out of the slot position. He's really shown some length and some athleticism that I think a lot of other players don't really have in this class. And him, alongside kind of the other player I was thinking about here, can kind of fill into like a Debo-esque role where they're explosive with the ball in their hands and make plays in that sense, but are also like good wide receivers. And I think Polk, more so than the other guy, is just a good wide receiver all around and just like has great hands, runs good routes, and has the requisite athleticism. So I like him, and I like how he can fit into an NFL offense.
Yeah, the other guy being Corley, obviously.
Damn, I gave it away.
No, I already knew who you were talking about. I already knew what you were going to do here, Kyle. We spend too much time talking about football together. My question to you is this, because this is interesting to me at this point. Are we seeing Washington become a wide receiver factory in terms of them developing these guys? Like, they seem to be developing the talent really well there. I mean, there's not like a name like Heartline right now, but I'm really fascinated to see if this keeps up, if they could kind of like fall into that realm of like Alabama and Ohio State and LSU in terms of schools that are renowned for producing these high-level wide receivers. Because look, healthy McMillan, we're talking about 3 Washington wide receivers going in the top 90 picks. I think McMillan would have been a healthy full season. McMillan would have been like right around that like supplemental pick range. I just really think that they've had a strong room there recently. So look, I'm not going to take Corley here, but I totally get it.
Let me answer your question. I think the answer is yes, and I think there's like proof in that, and a lot of that comes from like what DeBoer did at Fresno State in terms of turning G5 guys into NFL talents. Like Jalen Cropper was a like what 4th round pick, and then Nico Remigio the next year was a 5th round pick. Like that.
Cropper wasn't a
Fresno State is
pick.
Impressive.
4th. Cropper was like a 5th or 6th round.
No. 4th. I just
you get drafted super late. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm wrong.
But that in itself is impressive at a G5 school. So I think DeBoer moving up and bringing this offense to the P5, where he has guys with more physical talent, and teaching them to play wide receiver in the same ways he's taught Cropper, Remigio, other guys at Fresno State. I think, and just the offensive scheme they're in just showcases their talents. So yes, I do think Washington is going to be good at developing the wide receiver position.
Love it. Man, the board is wide open to me. There's guys that I like about equally here out of every position. There's a couple of wide receivers left that I absolutely love. All the some of these running backs are going to be like really productive, like RB2 for fantasy football that are left here. Really would love to know what the NFL thinks about like the old dudes, right? Does Brooks even come out, right? I mean, the safe pick of the remaining running backs is Devin Neal, but I think there's other guys here that might have more upside than him. And you got some 20-25 guys here too, just so you know. Trevor Etienne is not eligible this year.
Crazy.
Second year. Yeah. I think you got a couple other like that too, but he was the one that jumped out at me. But I still think Rocket can be like an elite NFL running back. It's just, how did he come out this year after this run?
Talking about next year,
yeah. And then again, I like Shipley. I still like Benson. I think I'm leaning back towards quarterback here, though, honestly. And it's tough because there's like several guys here that I think could really be the real deal in the NFL. I mean, I think Michael Penix is the obvious answer just because he's been phenomenal. But then there's like, does he get the draft capital? Does the injury history slow down the GMs, right? Does he have the size to hold up at the NFL level? So I think kind of in line with your Michael Pratt pick, I might take Jalen Milroe here. I think he's played really well in the back half of this year. And I think his athleticism is up there with like the Jalen Hurts, type players. As a runner, he really does have that kind of ability. And I think like Jalen Hurts, he has developed as a passer a ton in the past year. Is he at the level right now that he can step in and be like a great passing quarterback in the NFL? I think he needs more development, but I think he guy and really continue to develop like a really nice quarterback at the NFL level and a really, really nice fantasy football asset.
I am with you on Milroe. I would have drafted him before, but I think he's a 2025 guy. I just think he needs one more year to simmer. But no, definitely if he's in this class, well, obviously if he's in this class, he's gotten good news from the NFL. So I would be taking him here. So
and if he comes out, he's not a round one guy, I don't think. I don't think he's proven enough, but I think he'd come out, be a round two pick. And again, like just Jalen Hurts, like all over again, right? Same, like sits behind a veteran, learns the system, gets a quarterback that wants to cater to his style and really follow that like Hurts, Richardson type path. I mean, is he a worse passer than Richardson was in college? Richardson had that like awesome deep ball and it's nice, but like, is he worse at reading the field than Richardson was? Like, I don't know, so.
Guess what? I'm going to do the exact same thing with a guy with probably slightly less fantasy upside, but I think the NFL is going to like him, and that is Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. I think in terms of Georgia quarterbacks, he is like the most talented guy they've had in a while to actually start there, and I think he's been probably a little under the radar, but super impressive this year. He just finds the open guy and makes plays within system. And I think if he can do that at the NFL level, he'll have a job for a long time. Maybe not necessarily like prolific in terms of fantasy, but if he's Matt Ryan or if he's Jared Goff or one of these guys who, just sticks around, Kirk Cousins, just sticks around at like an average, slightly above average level and gives you a long time as like your QB2 in Superflex, you're super excited about that. In Dynasty. So I will take Carson Beck. I think if he comes out, he's probably, I mean, I can say this about like 4 guys who are juniors. Like if they come out, I think they're QB3, and that's like McCarthy, Milroe, Beck. Like if these guys come out, it's because the NFL said they're going to get drafted high. And if they get drafted high, I like all of their skill sets and all of their talents. So.
Yeah, it's funny, man. There are ways this NFL draft could come down to make it so that we draft more quarterbacks in our rookie drafts than we have in the past 5 years. Because like I'm looking at this and like there's a realistic chance that he comes out. I don't like him as much as you, but I probably haven't watched him as much as you either. I think he's fine. I'm not intrigued with him, but I get it. But Christ, Michael Penix is an excellent quarterback. Jada Daniels has played lights out this year. Bo Nix is a Heisman candidate, right? Like, even if we don't think they're have elite profiles, like they have like NFL quarterback profiles, like maybe they're round 3 picks and or backups or fighting for a job, but like, and every one of them except Penix runs too. Penix used to run before his legs exploded, So that's interesting to me, man. And I could easily take any one of those guys I just said, or even like Shader Sanders. I think he's got some upside, but I'm not taking them.
Even Quinn Ewers is still on the board. Which,
Like,
like, say what you
I
want,
think,
but like he has an NFL like talent,
yeah,
like arm talent, physical talent.
in a way that Will Levis has an NFL talent.
Will Levis had a really good game 3 weeks ago in his first ever
His second
NFL
game was
start.
good too. He threw for 300 yards and no
Yeah.
interceptions in that second start
Yeah.
as well. So that's not bad. Just needs to throw some touchdowns before you can play him in fantasy football. But I'll take that. Look, I gotta take Devin Neal here, man. I think he's an NFL running back. Like, how is he still on the board? This is psycho. He's just got, again, like a well-rounded profile. He's got just been great since he's a freshman. Get 3 years of high-level production. Catches the ball. I haven't watched a ton of his film, but I know the stats, and I just think I think he's a day 2 running back. I think if he's not, he's like a round 4 running back, but I think he's a day 2 running back right now. So give me Devin Neal.
Sure. I think at the 209, we've pushed him down far enough. I will take Xavier Worthy. We've talked about him a couple times as the guy that we're should be taking but aren't, and I think that's because we both think of him as a first round NFL pick, and we're just like concerned if that's going to translate to fantasy, if his like downfield role in which like he drops passes, which makes it even less like consistent, is like translatable to fantasy points on a consistent basis, or if he's just going to be super boom bust, and like how good are those booms even going to be? So I do think all those are very valid, but at the 209, I'll take a guy who we think is a first round pick. So I will take Xavier Worthy and get him off the board for us.
Yeah, right. That's yeah, you got to do it at some point, right? God, there's just so many guys on the board still that shouldn't be here, and this is going to thin way the hell out. A bunch of these guys are going to come out. Some of them are going to get like hurt at the Senior Bowl,
especially the quarterbacks that we've already drafted.
Yeah, like there's no way we're really at least I'll say I'll be shocked if we're drafting 5 quarterbacks in the top 2 rounds of rookie drafts next year. That would be a lot. Could happen.
I mean, if like 3 or 4 of them are first round picks and the other one's a second or third, I could see it happen.
It could. It's happened before. It's happened the past few years, but it hasn't happened in a couple of years for sure. And it's just like, how many of those guys land in a place where you think they have a job right away? That's, it's unlikely to be all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a first round pick, I don't really care. You're going to have a job eventually.
True. I'll just say this too. I think Jonathan Brooks, we both would have taken already if it wasn't for the injury.
Absolutely.
We just think if he comes out, he gets lower draft capital because of the injury, and likely he goes back to and plays another year. Although I don't know, man, he could get like round 3 draft capital without coming back. I think, but it would be like pick 90 or pick 92 or whatever, right? It'd be like a comp pick, just because of the risk of him not coming back well. God, and there's several other guys that I think could still be really good NFL running backs. I kind of think here, another guy that I don't know if he comes out this year, but I think if he does, he is like a top 50, top 60 pick for the NFL draft, would be Luke Lachey. He's an Iowa tight end. He's a complete tight end, and he was on fire as a receiver, like really filling in Sam Laporta's footsteps until he got his own crippling injury about halfway through the season. So he's a guy that, again, maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't come out, but I think he gets drafted highly if he does come out, and I think he's got a shot of being a really good fantasy tight end. And if he does come out and get drafted, he's probably going to fall in rookie drafts, just like Laporta did because of Mayer and Kincaid, and might become a real value.
Yeah, I like that. He's a guy that I also think is a 2025 guy just because of the injury, so not really someone I was targeting. But I do agree with your process, and I do like the pick. I'll take another guy that I think has probably fallen too far, and that is Kentucky running back Ray Davis. He's just been super impressive this year. He's always kind of had the athleticism that we like to see and the build we like to see. So, and it's not just that he's been impressive this year; he's been impressive at multiple destinations and across multiple years. So, I like Ray Davis quite a bit, and I think if he's a day 2 pick, he's going way earlier than this. So,
yeah. Look, Ray Davis is a guy that could be like a legit RB1, right? It's just we kind of want to see the NFL see it, you know.
mm-hmm.
But God, man, he torched freaking Georgia. Nobody does that, you know. Ran all over him. So yeah, I love that there. Look, I got to take Michael Penix. He shouldn't be on the board still. He probably shouldn't have made it out of the top like 15 picks here. I just
disagree.
think he's. You just don't think he's that good?
Yes.
Why don't you think he's that good?
He has not had a good season without Kalen DeBoer on the coaching staff, and I think the system is really good.
He flashed a little bit in his first 2 years at Indiana.
Kalen DeBoer was the OC at Indiana in his first 2 years. And then when he went to Fresno State, he had 2 bad seasons at Indiana. But I'm tepid. The injury history is very concerning to me. I don't think he has incredible arm talent, especially when we're comparing him to NFL guys. I don't think he has super arm talent at all. And I kind of doubt his ability to extend plays to the next level as well because of the leg stuff and whatnot. And I think the lack of athleticism is a little worrying. But I get it. I mean, he's been like super good for the last 2 years, so I get it. I just think there's a little more at play with the scheme, and obviously we're talking about 3 really talented wide receivers, so I don't know. I think his profile is a little worrisome.
Yeah, it could go either way. I don't know. I think he's going to get a starting job. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. I don't know. Like his worst case scenario to me is like where Hendon Hooker went. I think that's kind of where he goes in the draft. But you know, whatever. We're like pushing into the 3rd round in a super flex draft, you know, and that's pretty much where Hooker went in drafts too. So I think it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I will take a guy who I think is absolutely going to be an NFL running back and is absolutely going to be drafted higher than we think. And I think that has a lot to do with name value and the stuff that he's done over the past 2 seasons and the fact that his team is very good. So I think it's fair that we've kind of knocked him a little bit, but that is Blake Corum, the Michigan running back. He's just been like not necessarily incredibly efficient or anything, but he's like had a very large workload and just compiled a ton of stats. And I think the NFL likes big P5 guys and likes guys who are playing in the playoffs and whatnot. And so I think Blake Corum probably ends up as a 3rd round pick. Now, if you want to argue that he's not going to be a true 3-down back, I can totally agree with you, and I'll hear you out.
I like Corum. He's on the map for me as well. I'm going to take a guy that I know you don't like at all, but his data profile looks awesome to me right now. We're going to throw Jaden Daniels on the board. Look,
damn, I have tried to guess your pick and been wrong twice in a row.
Yeah. Look, Jaden Daniels' data profile right now puts him in an elite tier, like absolutely unimpeachable tier. And my data model's been really, really good so far. The only thing that gives me pause with him is like he is a 5th-year guy. The hit rate drops a little bit with 5th-year guys, but it still puts him in a category with like Joe Burrow and like Dak Prescott.
Yeah,
so
but
it's not.
I mean, Burrow never got an opportunity until that last year.
I'm just looking at numbers right now. But look, talking to numbers, his passing efficiency this year has been balls out. It's been awesome, just like super productive. And the kid runs. He's a good runner. Does he run like that much at the NFL level? Probably not. He gets smashed. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not that level.
Tiny.
Yeah, he's not that level of like liquid that Lamar is, right? Either. Like he's a little more of a traditional runner, and he's not. I don't think he's as fast as Kyler. I don't think he's as agile as Lamar Jackson. So I think he has to dial that back a little bit at the NFL level. But look, I think the kid can make a living as a passer and then add some serious damage on the ground if the NFL believes that he could do it without getting his head knocked off in the first game. I mean, he is a little dude. Look, if Daniels had this same profile and he was, 6'3", 230 pounds, the conversation about him would be different. I know we don't love that he kind of sucked until his fourth year. That's not great. That's what worries me about him. I don't really care about the size personally or any of that shit. I care about the fact that he was bad for 3 years, or just not great, right? He wasn't really good. And even
do you have full career stats in the model yet, or just the season still?
I have season average stats, and he looks really good. Yeah. But again, that's what I was saying. The fifth year, they're still in that top tier of mine. There's 8 guys that were fifth year players, and it was a 50-50 hit rate. So, still not bad. It's a tiny sample size, but the elite quarterbacks are a tiny sample to start with. We'll see. And I do think the NFL likes Daniel. There doesn't seem to be much buzz with Bo, but there seems to be some buzz with draft people with Daniels at this point. So I think he might get drafted ahead of several of the other quarterbacks we picked already, and it wouldn't really be shocking to me. Can't leave him on the board.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, it's a 302. I can't argue too much about a guy who's been really impressive this year. So, for sure. I mentioned a guy earlier who I think is going to be really good at the NFL level and plays a type of role that I think is good for fantasy, and that is Western Kentucky wide receiver Malachi Corley. I think he's going to be fantastic at the Senior Bowl this year, and I think he's going to rise up draft boards and end up being a day 2 pick. So I will take Malachi Corley with the 303 here.
Yeah, that's easy. I think he's a value pick there. I don't think he that's probably going to be later than he goes in rookie drafts, I think, because some of these other guys are probably going to drop off, but I feel pretty confident that Corley's a top 90 pick, and I think he's going to be a good fantasy player, right? He definitely has that rack ability, but can win, as a wide receiver too. So it's pretty exciting. Now we're in a tier of running backs where there's guys with talent, but their draft capital is really uncertain, And it's not just Sanders and Brooks. It's guys like Shipley. Some people, I'm still high on him. I think his pass catching ability buoys him, but he hasn't been awesome as a runner. Else Clemson sucked. Estime, right, who's got just elite size and really good speed, a little bit less versatility. Benson, people are calling the RB1 coming into the season, started slow, but man, he's been really good in the past few games. And I think for me, I got 2 or 3 other guys there too. Irving, Lloyd. I like all these players. I think these are all NFL players. For me, I think I take Shipley here. That's unpopular at this point. I'm not really seeing a lot of hype around his name, but I think his pass catching ability gets him drafted and gets him on the field early. And I think he can be really successful in that role. I don't know if I buy him as a full-on workhorse at this point, but if he can do what Jaylen Warren's been doing for Pittsburgh, that is a startable running back. And I think he has a chance to really be the Shipley we saw at the peak of his college career, which was extremely productive. This has not been his best year. And if he's in the right system, I could really see him getting some play as that CMC light type player, because he does have that mold. He's just not as good as CMC.
Sure. I am going to take another small school wide receiver that I really. No, I'm not. I'm going to take his teammate. I'm going to take Dallin Holker, a
Hmm.
tight end that we've seen a lot from this year at Colorado State. And like, sure, you can knock him. It's Colorado State, but he's been fantastic. And it's not the first time. We saw Trey McBride ball out at Colorado State, end
Mm-hmm.
up as a third round pick, I believe, maybe a second.
And
But
he's balling now.
yeah, I mean, he's finally got an opportunity, and he's showing it. And I think Holker has that same, probably slightly less athleticism than McBride, but still impressive athleticism for the position and impressive catching ability. So I will take Dallin Holker at the 305.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and look, I'll say Horton's a great pick here, man. This is late for Horton to have gone. I think
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. I've been focused on the running backs. I'm not gonna take Horton. I assume you're gonna take him next time. But honestly, I thought we could have taken Horton where we took like what was I thinking, like Worthy, honestly. Like
Really?
Horton's really good wide receiver, man. Yeah, I don't know. He's got like a lot of like really high end traits. He's got obscene production. I'd love to see where he comes out in my production model. And what I do for data with the G5 guys, they just get like a knock for being G5 that kind of like balances out the extreme production, the level of competition. And then I also weight, this is tough for me to do early, but I do a teammate score. So guys that play like the all of the Washington receivers are going to get like a bump in my model because they played with other really productive wide receivers and still got work, and that's been a really useful part of the model. It drags up those guys and you look at the Alabama and the Ohio State guys and it's been useful. So the G5 guys don't get that. But I'm going to stay with the running backs and, God, I really want to take Marshawn Boyd. I just think he's a damn good running back, honestly. So I'm just going to take him because I do think he's got a lot of versatility. I think it's a reach. I don't think he's a day two guy. I just think he hasn't done enough to separate himself from the other running backs. But you talk about a guy that's a tackle breaking machine that really is versatile and can do a lot of different things as a running back that are going to translate. I'm hard pressed to project him to get top 95 capital. I just don't think it happens.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think he's definitely a guy, though, that could surprise people in terms of draft capital, just because of the talent he's shown. And the system really hasn't showcased him, but I think he's shown a lot of flashes of talent this year. So I do like Lloyd. The injury history is there too, which is a little concerning, but he definitely has the talent. We obviously mentioned it, but I'm taking Torrey Horton here, going back to back on the Colorado State guys. Like you said, Horton probably going higher than this. Obviously, pending draft capital. We don't really know how the NFL feels about him, but I know we both feel very strongly that he is that talented of a wide receiver. He just kind of looks head and shoulders above everybody else he plays at the G5 level. So I like that pick. I think he showcases some more things to me in terms of like catch radius and length and athleticism than a lot of other G5 guys, especially the Colorado State guys that I'm thinking about. What is that? Who's that guy's name? Who went to Colorado State? And like people were super excited about him because he had superb production. It's like a W. It's like Warren.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Warren something Warren. He was a big, like 6'5" guy, but he like got like not drafted.
Warren Jackson.
Yeah. Warren Jackson, yeah.
I definitely think he's shown. Right? I definitely think Horton has shown more talent than that. So I'm not, grouping him in with those guys.
I think Horton's path to me reminds me of like Jalen Tolbert, right? I think a similar production profile, kind of like Tolbert's a little, I think, more physical, but I think Horton's a better receiver. So I think that's kind of like where the NFL is going to value him. Look, I'm taking Audric Estime here. I think he's a really good running back. I think my knock on him is that I don't see the NFL using him as a pass catcher. So he really needs to like find like a Donta Foreman role where he can be like the productive goal line guy. And
Damian
between
Pierce.
the 20, he's better than Dameon Pierce, I think. Honestly, he's bigger and I think he's faster than Dameon Pierce. And Foreman to me is really the comp, like healthy Donta Foreman, not post Achilles Donta Foreman. Although kid's playing well now, but I think that's his role. But I think he gets that role. I think he could be a round 3 guy for the NFL just based on his physicality, extreme production. He's a tackle breaker. That's one data point that does actually correlate to future fantasy success. So yeah, man, I like Estime. Give me them there. A little one-dimensional, but he's really good at the dimensions that he works in.
Yeah, I think we've worn this conversation now. We both know that I don't like Estime, so we'll move on. Shoot, I kind of just want to keep taking wide receivers. There's so many fun little names here, but I don't think I will. I'll take Bucky Irving. I know we've talked about him at length as well, and you've been the guy who's kind of been driving that train in terms of the two of us, but I think there is a role for Bucky Irving in the NFL just with his speed and whatnot and the things you've said in the past. So I don't think he's a workhorse back by any means, but we're talking about like the 309 here. So give me a guy who will get on the field in some capacity and I'll be happy.
Yeah, like it's damn good running back, man. And I think the NFL is being a copycat league, a little bit falling into the Shanahan style of dealing with running backs, right? Which is like, sure, the little guys get injured. So you don't pay them much money. You don't draft them highly. You send them out there to get wrecked.
And you get a bunch of them.
Get a bunch of them. But God damn it, they run for 7 yards a carry, right? And I do think he's that. He's not as fast as A-Chain, but a lot of the other traits that A-Chain has, the contact balance, the vision, like Bucky Irving does those things. He's just not like a world-class sprinter. He's still fast as hell. So yeah, man, I think I think the NFL is higher on him than a lot of the Devy cats are at this point. I'm going to take Trey Benson here. I think Trey Benson's another good running back. I don't think he's the prince that was promised as people had him in preseason, but I do think he's a rugged back. I think he's a tackle breaker. He's had some passing game work. I wish we'd seen more consistency from him this season, but when he flashes on tape, he looks really good. I just project him to be an NFL RB1, like off the rip. Maybe he's a guy that can develop and fill that role more. But I think he's like a strong member of a committee. But like you said, at this point, give me guys that are getting on the field. And I love stocking up on the RB2s if I think they're talented players.
Yeah, it's definitely the running back range for us right now. We're at 3 in a row, 4 out of the last 5. I'm going to make it 4 in a row, and I'm going to take the discount just in case he does come out, and that's Jonathan Brooks, the Texas running back, who's just been really impressive this season, and like has like tackle breaking ability, real power, and speed. Obviously, a torn ACL is not great for the running back position, but I will take that risk at the 311. So back to you.
Yeah. Look, if we're playing that game, then I might as well take Rocket too, because I do think his talent, he has more upside than almost any running back in this class, just in terms of size, speed profile, catching ability, raw athleticism, and we've seen him already put together like a 1,400-yard season. It just was bad this year. Lost the OC. The whole offense fell apart. They've just been a crap offense for the most part. I think he did not get set up to succeed. I have no idea if he comes out. I've been saying not for several months now, but God, if he comes out, then he was a second-round pick to me still.
I am like way more pessimistic on Sanders coming out than I am Brooks.
Yeah.
I do think I think there's a possibility that Brooks feels like CJ Baxter breathing down his neck and just says like, hey, I had a hell of a season this year. I'm just going to go.
Yeah, dude.
But
Maybe he gets round 4 capital, but like a job and is happy with that. I mean, you're a running back, right? It's a rough
yeah,
game in a running back. So
yeah, that's a raise for him. Like we talk about NIL and everything, but still, 4th, 5th round for a guy like Jonathan Brooks is definitely a raise. Well, it is Texas, but probably still a raise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Let's fly through one more round and we'll call it after 4. We'll just go kind of rapid fire.
Yeah, let's make this a 10-minute round, not a 30-minute round.
Yeah. I will take Jalen McMillan at the 4-1 just because I think he's kind of just staring us down near the top of the rankings. So slipped a little too far for my liking.
Yeah. No, I feel that I'm going to take Trey Harris here. I think Trey Harris has had an awesome season. He can play outside. Somehow got himself drafted on day 2. I'll take the shot that Harris does. And really, I think it's likely that Harris is one of the guys that goes in round 3 in that like last round of day 2 wide receivers. And I think he's got some traits. He could have a successful NFL career and potentially be a fantasy asset.
Yeah, absolutely. At the 403, I will take North Carolina tight end Bryson Nesbitt. I think he has the athleticism, like above average athleticism for the tight end position. And he's really coming on as of late in the last couple of weeks. He's been very, very good. So I like him, and I like his ability to move up to NFL. I think he can be a more statistically have more statistical output at the next level than the college level. So I like Bryson Nesbitt. I think he probably goes higher than this.
Yeah, they move him all over the field. He can play all the positions. I like Nesbitt a lot. Here's one of my guys that's a long shot to get the draft capital, but when we've done the Devy data, I think on him, he's actually come out better than his raw production stats, and that's J. Michael Sturdivant. I just don't think he comes out, but his athleticism is really high level. He's put some nice stuff on film, and all his peripheral metrics look really good. He's just not getting the production. They're not throwing the goddamn ball. But he's a guy that I think could have a better NFL career than he has college career. Give me the shot at the upside and the athleticism at that point.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on Sturdivant being a 2025 guy. I think he needs probably one more year to cook and sizzle at the college level and really prove it to us and prove it to the NFL. So hopefully Dante Moore is more trusted in this offense next year and really can show off with Sturdivant. Although apparently there's rumors that Chip Kelly's getting fired, so there's a possibility both these guys end up transferring. So
interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Which is kind of crazy considering they've had a really good season and they're really good for being UCLA.
Yeah. It's UCLA. What's the expectation there,
Well, they're going to the Big Ten, so you never know.
Yeah. Gosh.
For the 405, there are a lot of guys in this list that I want to get into this draft. And I think I'm going to have trouble getting all these guys into this draft, but shoot, the one guy I probably feel like has the most chance in the NFL out of those guys is going to be Tennessee running back Jalen Wright. I think he's better than the sum of his statistics, and just can do things running the ball that are conducive to success. He forces missed tackles and runs hard and gets north-south, and I think he has the athleticism to succeed. So I will take Jalen Wright. I think he could be I'm helmet scouting in a way. I'm going to say Alvin Kamara because Alvin Kamara was not used as a full 3-down back in college, but was that in the NFL. I think Wright is similar to that and can possibly take that step moving forward, although probably not to the level of Kamara.
Yeah, there was no doubt in my mind you were taking Jalen Wright there. And look, I like
Okay,
Wright, man.
shut up.
He's more explosive than like the last 5 running backs we drafted. Just really his ability is like that lightning back. Yeah. Well, not rocket, but yeah. God, what do I do here? I will take click, 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 click. I'm going to throw a guy in here because he's worth talking about. And I think the NFL is going to like him. And that's Xavier Legette. I think he's going to be like one of those Senior Bowl guys that just like absolutely wrecks inferior competition. I am like pretty off of guys with that data profile just because he did nothing until his like 4th year. But I think the athleticism and the production get him drafted, and they might get him drafted in the top 100 picks. I think he's worth talking about in the mock. And look, if you've got him, you know, he's a guy you hold, he gets drafted, and then you flip him if you don't believe him at the next level. Gosh, like there's been some guys like Debo that didn't do much until later in their careers and went on to be really successful NFL players. It's just a really low hit rate. So as a data guy, I'm out, but I think the NFL is in.
Yeah. Okay, I think I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to.
Amani?
No, I was going to say Bo Nix, but I don't want to, so I'm not going to. Quite frankly, he's probably deserving of this, but I don't want to. Yeah, I'm going to take. There's like 3 picks left for me, so I'm going to like take guys that I want to stick my name on, and one of those guys is Ricky Pearsall, the Florida wide receiver. I think he is very good at getting open, very good at running routes, and I think he can be a successful slot wide receiver at the next level.
Yeah, he's really fast. I almost took him instead of Legette, but I think the NFL will be higher on Legette because of the size speed profile, and to be lower on Pearsall because he's a little guy and he's a slot receiver. But look, I think Pearsall could be an actual fantasy asset, right? Like he's good, man. He's good, and we've seen that this year. A little bit later on the development curve than I would like, but nonetheless, he's been pretty good. I'll give you a guy that's been great this year. It was great last year. I have no idea if he's athletic enough, but Daijun Edwards from Georgia has just been like a beast for them. I don't think he's at the level of the storied, predecessors at Georgia of like DeAndre Swift and Nick Chubb, but I think he's a damn good running back. He can catch passes. We've seen him thrive in that role, in spot work. And if he is more athletic than I think he is, could be a real thing at the NFL level. I'm just worried he's like a 210-pound 4.65 guy, which is why I'm letting him drop this low.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how the NFL likes these guys who are at like high-level programs when we talked about Corum, and I think that definitely applies to Daijun Edwards, and he can get draft capital a la, Brian Robinson or like Kenny McIntosh or like any number of these guys who played at Georgia and had 1 or 2 good seasons just because they were the lead back behind a great offensive line. But yeah, I definitely think he can get much higher NFL draft capital than where we're drafting him here. At the 409, I guess I will do it. I'll take Bo Nix. He needs to be drafted, so I will bite the bullet. I don't
Look,
the way he played at Auburn is like still very concerning to me because he was like horrible. But there's been some growth. He does look a little better. It's still like every 4th play, you're like, what the fuck are you doing? But He has put together a couple of very good seasons at Oregon and in that scheme. So I think that can translate to draft capital. So I will take Bo Nix.
Yeah. I think he gets like top 100, top 120 NFL draft capital and gets a shot, to compete for a job at least. If he could win it or not, but he's like the data model loves him at this point. So, we shall see. He could be on the lower 50% that doesn't hit of that profile, but he's got a shot for sure. I'm gonna take a guy I've been high on. He hasn't done what I wanted him to this year, but Jalen Conyers, just a freak athlete. I don't think he really comes out, but if he does come out, I think the NFL will see what he does at the combine and put some respect on that. I really wanted to see him do more as a receiver this year, and I think he does come back for that purpose to kind of really round out his profile. But I like him enough to take him in the 4th round.
Yeah. I tend to, at the end of the 4th round, take shots at quarterbacks who are like 5th, 6th round picks who like probably aren't even going to have the opportunity to like start or even to like compete for the job. But if an injury were to happen, they will get the chance to play. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best strategy, but that's what I like to do. So I will do it at the 4-11, and I will take. There are actually a number of guys I like more than this player, but I think all those guys are not coming out in this class, so I won't do that and take those guys who I think have higher upside. But I will take Dylan Gabriel at the 4-11. I think he's the type of guy who like is probably a career NFL journeyman, but I think he has a long journeyman career, and he's kind of just like picked up offenses quickly between his transfer to Oklahoma and whatnot. He's shown that he can lead a team. I think he's the kind of guy that a team will want to keep around, and the NFL will keep him around for quite a while. And so he'll have some opportunities to start and some opportunities to play, and possibly, if a team wants to tank, he might end up getting a whole season at some point. So I will take Dylan Gabriel in the late 4th, and I will probably do that often in rookie drafts.
Yeah, no, I get it. It makes sense. It's a low hit rate no matter what you're doing there. I tend to take backup running backs at that point just because the attrition, makes them have value at some point, or, like tight ends. But no, I get it. I get it. And honestly, most of the quarterbacks that are left here that I like, I'm pretty sure they're coming back, right? Like I like Salter a lot, but he's coming back. Yeah. I like Jalen Daniels. He's coming back. Riley Leonard probably coming back after the knee injury. Jackson Dart, I think, could be a real rise.
McCord.
Yeah, I don't like McCord, but Dart, I think, could be a riser next year. McCord could if he puts it together. I don't think he's got the Ohio State job next year. I think they're going to.
The dude has played mistake-free football for the most part. Just hasn't been prolific. So
they're going to bring someone in to compete with him or give Devin Brown a shot, bring in a recruit. They got to bring someone in.
I mean, they're undefeated.
He's been fine. Yeah, I hear you.
He keeps winning. If he beats Michigan.
Yeah. True. Yeah, not much cause to replace your quarterback at an undefeated season, right?
Crazier
things have happened, but they got to bring someone to compete with him, right? Like look, they know football, right? Ryan Day knows football. I'm sure he knows that, the reduction in production from that offense has not been great. Look, I'm going to go with high-end programs. Take a guy that we've just been waiting for him to do it for 4 years now. It's Jace McClellan, but again, like he's an Alabama running back. He's very athletic. He has some nice traits. He's going to get drafted. It's just probably not day 2 at this point. Could be a rotational back. He's a guy that if he gets in games, though, like he could do some damage. He's just never put it together for any period of time that we've seen. So, therefore, a little bit lower than he could have been coming into the draft.
Yeah, I think the athleticism is definitely there, and he's definitely a guy who could flash if he is given the opportunity. Real quick, some guys that I think we probably passed over that will probably get drafted in the first 4 rounds. I do think obviously we took too many quarterbacks. I think a good few of the quarterbacks we drafted will probably come back, and obviously that could happen with some of the running backs, some of the wide receivers. So I think there will be other guys who actually do get drafted. I think Cade Stover pops
Yeah.
out as one of those guys. I think he is going to the NFL and going to get draft capital.
Yeah, I almost took him in that last round.
Yeah, so did I. Just
And
wasn't
Jaheim
near as fun
Bell.
as the other guys. Jaheim Bell, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Jacob Cowing is a guy that we talked about in the offseason. We were both like, oh, this guy's probably a lock for a 4th-round pick in the NFL.
Yeah,
So,
4th. Yeah.
I know you like Bo Collins. I was kind of surprised you didn't go that direction at some point.
I think he's a day 3 guy unless he comes back and does more. He just doesn't have the production profile for me.
That's
but
fair.
I do like him. I think he's put some nice stuff on film this year for a big receiver. So
yeah,
I'm a fan.
I think Donovan Edwards is a big name we left out, but I think he's another guy who comes back. He needs to prove it.
He just hasn't done anything this year. It hasn't been good.
But I do think there are some like 4th-year backs that'll come out and probably get drafted. Dylan Johnson is one of those guys. I think Tawee Walker gets drafted this year. I think Taj Brooks is going to have a good Senior Bowl and probably climb up some of our boards. Those are really the names that kind of pop out to me.
Yeah, I think Trayanum could come out, and I think he could be an NFL running back. I think he's good.
Is he
I think
out of eligibility?
No, he could play another year if he wants. This was his 4th season.
Okay.
And he must have had a medical red shirt, didn't he?
Maybe. He's just like never been a lead back, and he's still not even that big of a piece for him this year. I hesitate. Well, he has been a lead back.
He gets the ball.
He just hasn't been a lead back in like 3 years. But
yeah, right. Yeah, I got a couple more guys to throw in there. I think Elijah Badger is underrated. I think he is like early day 3, could be, a 3rd-round guy. I think Xavier Weaver is a guy that's going to be a slot at the next level, a day 3 guy, but he's going to get on the field. He's going to be a starter.
I thought you would pick him for sure.
Yeah, I probably would have in this range, honestly. He's the guy I'm probably going to take a lot in rookie drafts. I just didn't really think about him here. I think Dominic Lovett's kind of in that same realm too. I think he's a really good wide receiver, awesome production last year in an underwhelming offense. And then just has been at Georgia where you just don't throw to anyone other than Brock Bowers. But I think he's going to be an NFL slot receiver and be successful. He can play outside too, just a little guy.
Yeah. Speaking of Georgia, I think Ladd McConkey ends up getting drafted. And I think he'll have like fringe fantasy hype. And then Jermaine Burton is another big one who I think goes pro this year. I think Taj Washington has some athleticism that can translate to the NFL. And I think Johnny Wilson is another guy who could maybe go a little higher than we think. I know we're all kind of unimpressed, but, the NFL does sometimes kind of fall for the big wide receiver trap. And then Isaiah Williams at Illinois is another guy that we both like as a Devy prospect, despite not having a ton of production. Kind of like
I think he would
be Tony-ish, and that the fact that he's like very athletic and moves well laterally.
Yeah,
I think he'll be very good at the Senior Bowl
with production.
Oh yeah, in comparison to Tony, sure.
Yeah, he's just never whatever. Kid's got caught like 300 balls in college at least, right? It's just been like a lot of like 7 and 8 yard passes, right? So,
it's also just like Illinois and they run the ball all the time, but.
All right, man. I love this. I think this was really fun. This was really productive. So if you guys tuned in, you like this, we're gonna put out a nice graphic. Kyle's got the skills with the graphics. Yeah, not tonight. It's late. We're tired. But we're gonna put a shiny graphic out there for you guys, and you can all tell us where you think we're right and wrong, where I'm right and Kyle's wrong mostly. And chime in. We'd love to hear what you guys think about this, where your thoughts are in the class. And also, if you made it here, leave us a review, follow us. We appreciate that stuff. We love all 25 of you that watch this show, and we appreciate you very much. So,
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. All right, guys. We're out for tonight. Catch us next week. We're going to be doing some Devy mocks. We get into the season. We're going to be doing some data scouting workshop with other data guys. That's going to be really fun. And and then we're going to kind of start hitting some freshmen and maybe start getting into like a Devy startup for next year and some things like that over the next few weeks. So let us know what you want to see. Peace out.